federal judge just ordered United States Marshals to arrest Donald Trump's lawyers. Not a warning, not a fine arrest. Judge Caldwell called the Marshals back into the courtroom after Trump's lawyers kept breaking her direct orders. And when those Marshals came back, they weren't there to protect anyone. They were there to make arrests. This was not a show. It was not just talk. It was a real federal judge having the former president's legal team physically taken away for disobeying the court. When lawyers get arrested inside a courtroom by federal marshals, something has gone very wrong with their plan, and Trump's team found that out the hard way. What happens when you push a federal judge too far? It started when Trump's lawyers refused, for the third time in a row, to follow Judge Caldwell's direct order to hand over documents the court had asked for weeks earlier. But this time, they went even further. They openly said the judge didn't have the right to tell them what to do, accused her of being unfair, and said they would not follow her orders no matter what. This was not just another legal fight in Trump's long list of court battles. It was a moment where lawyers treated a federal courtroom like a political rally and learned that judges have real power. The United States Constitution gives federal judges the power to keep order in their courtrooms. The United States Marshals Service exists partly to back up that power, and Judge Caldwell used both. For many years, Trump's legal plan has often been to delay things, disobey orders, and count on there never being real consequences. That plan seemed to fall apart inside a Washington, D.C. courtroom. At about 2047 p.m. Eastern Time, Judge Caldwell gave what would be her final warning. 3 weeks earlier, she had ordered Trump's lawyers to hand over a specific set of financial documents. The deadline passed. She gave them more time. That deadline passed too. Court records show the lawyers had handed over nothing. From her seat at the front of the courtroom, Judge Caldwell reportedly said, "Counsel, you have used up this court's patience. You have been given every fair chance to follow the order. You have chosen to disobey. That choice has consequences." Lead attorney Stanley Woodward responded by questioning whether the court even had the right to demand the documents, an argument the court had already turned down. Twice, Judge Caldwell responded calmly but firmly. "Mr. Woodward, you are not in a position to argue things that have already been decided. You're in a position to follow this court's orders. Will you hand over the documents?" The answer, according to reports, was no. What happened next shocked everyone in the courtroom. Judge Caldwell called a short break. The marshals who had been standing in the back were sent out, and people watching assumed the judge was taking time to think about her choices. 12 minutes later, she came back and called the marshals into the courtroom again. Then she gave her ruling. The court finds that the lawyers have committed criminal contempt. Marshals, please take them into custody until a compliance hearing can be held. Not civil contempt, which usually just means fines. Criminal contempt, meaning they would be held in custody. Trump's attorneys Stanley Woodward and Emil Bowe were walked out of the courtroom by federal marshals and taken to be processed. According to court papers released shortly after, the contempt ruling was about much more than the missing documents. Judge Caldwell pointed to months of behavior that included repeatedly lying to the court, using delay tactics on purpose to slow down the case, and making public statements meant to weaken the court's authority. The court papers also pointed to a social media post made just hours before the hearing that accused the judge of being compromised and suggested she would face consequences for her rulings. Former federal prosecutor Joyce Vance said on television that the situation was almost bound to happen given the circumstances. When you threaten a sitting federal judge on social media and then refuse to follow her orders in her own courtroom, Vance said, you are practically asking for a contempt ruling. Both lawyers were held until a compliance hearing scheduled for the very next morning. Bail was denied at first because Judge Caldwell decided they would likely keep refusing to follow the rules. The order gave them 24 hours to fix the contempt by handing over the documents. If they comply, they go free. If they refuse, they face official criminal contempt charges that could mean up to 6 months in federal custody. This confrontation was the result of months of growing conflict between the court and Trump's legal team. The case at the center of it involves financial documents related to one of Trump's businesses, documents that prosecutors say are essential to their investigation. The timeline tells the whole story. The court first ordered the documents to be handed over in early spring. Trump's lawyers asked for more time. Granted. They asked for a second extension, saying they needed time to review privilege. Granted, they filed a motion challenging the scope of the order. Denied. They tried to appeal. Denied. They claimed the documents did not exist. Prosecutors showed evidence that they did. They then argued the documents were protected by executive privilege, an argument the court rejected. Every delay bought more time, but each one also added to a record of what Judge Caldwell later called systematic obstruction. Everything got worse in the morning of the hearing when one attorney posted online suggesting the judge had been put in place to destroy Trump and warned that patriots see what you're doing, Judge. Caldwell brought up the post directly in court and asked whether the lawyers stood by it. According to witnesses, they did not take it back. Sources close to the judge's office say she had already prepared for the possibility of a contempt action. She had reportedly spent days looking up past cases and talking with court security. The decision was made carefully. Legal scholars point out that the Supreme Court of the United States has repeatedly supported the power of trial judges to hold people in contempt. Without that power, courts would have no way to enforce their orders. The moment that shocked observers came when the marshals walked toward the defense table, witnesses say there was a pause, a second where nobody quite believed what was happening. The marshals were calm and professional. They simply told the attorneys they needed to come with them. The courtroom went completely quiet as they were walked out through a side door leading to holding areas. One experienced attorney who has appeared in that judge's courtroom for decades reportedly said outside the courthouse, "I have never seen anything like that in my career." Judge Caldwell then spoke to the remaining people in the courtroom and announced a 30-minute break before scheduling the compliance hearing for the next morning. Legal analysts immediately started comparing the moment to past constitutional crises like Watergate, but many pointed out an important difference in past cases. Lawyers eventually followed orders before getting arrested. According to constitutional scholar Lawrence Tribe, the ruling could mark a turning point in how courts respond to attacks on judicial authority. Other legal voices agreed. Former prosecutor Andrew Weissman said the ruling sends a message that patterns of delay and intimidation can have real consequences. Conservative attorney George Conway said the arrests show that legal rules apply even to lawyers who represent powerful clients. Former U.S. Attorney Barbara McQuaid pointed out that being held in custody changes everything. Fines can be paid, but being arrested forces people to make immediate decisions. Meanwhile, Trump responded quickly. On Truth Social, Trump posted a message attacking Judge Caldwell, calling her a radical lunatic, and claiming the ruling was part of a political witch hunt against his lawyers. Legal analysts warned that attacking the judge while the contempt order was still active could make the situation even worse. According to former prosecutor Renato Mariotti, threatening a judge while your lawyers are already in custody for contempt could create even more legal problems. The next step now depends on what happens at the compliance hearing. If the documents are handed over, the attorneys could be released and the contempt charges dropped. If they refuse, prosecutors could pursue official criminal contempt charges with possible jail time. Trump's legal team has already filed an emergency request asking the United States Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia to free the attorneys while the appeal is considered. Legal observers are watching three important questions. Will the documents be handed over before the deadline? How will the appeals court respond to the emergency request? Will Trump's public statements create more legal problems? The answers to those questions could decide whether this becomes a turning point in how courts enforce their authority, or just an unusual and extraordinary moment in a single courtroom. One thing, however, is already clear. A federal judge showed that court orders are not optional, and that when those orders are openly broken, the United States Marshals Service will enforce them.